Gamecocks get a big win over SEC East foe Florida, moving to 5-3 in league play, 7-3 overall as the Gamecocks get ready to take on the perennial in-state thorn in the side in the Wofford Terriers, who are 9-1 on the season and lead their conference. We'll talk about that. Give you a rundown on the brief history of South Carolina and Wofford. Take a look back at the Florida game. Talk about some offensive issues that the Gamecocks had to overcome to sneak out of Williams-Brice Stadium with the win. Hear from Coach Will Muschamp as well. We'll take a look around the SEC and see how the Gamecocks are shaping up in the bowl picture. Stay with us. We're just getting started right here on the Carolina CrowLine.
Follow the show on Twitter at Carolina CrowLine. Email the show at gcsportstalk@gmail.com.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Check out the Groupon app where you can save up to infinity, theoretically speaking. Actually, you can save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Suppose you save $10 on tacos and took that $10 and used it to get more great restaurant deals on Groupon, like Italian or Chinese. Pretty soon, you could save a ton. Brunch? Check Groupon. Dinner plans? Check Groupon. Hungry? Use the top-rated Groupon app to save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Download the app and save. Groupon.
What makes a holiday card unforgettable? Personality. And no one makes it easier or more affordable to create a holiday card full of personality than Vistaprint. Right now, get 50% off all custom holiday cards. That means 30 cards start at less than $15. With hundreds of stunning designs, your personality will shine through with every card you send. Just go to Vistaprint.com today and enter the promo code HOLIDAY to get 50% off all custom holiday cards. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code HOLIDAY.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast, or your money back.
And welcome here into the Carolina CrowLine. Glad you could be with us. We're just getting things started here on the show. I'm the host, Tyler Garrett, here on the CRM Sports Studios in Columbia, South Carolina. Gamecocks moving to 7-3 on the season, 5-3 in league play with a 28-20 win over the Florida Gators here. A lot of storylines going into this football game. Number one, it was going to be another opportunity for the Gamecocks to build their brand on CBS national television against a name opponent. We all know the struggles that the Gators have been going through, firing their coach, the early season suspensions, all of the injuries they've had to deal with to a lot of their starters. They were a banged-up squad physically and mentally. This was going to be a good challenge for the Gamecocks to see if, despite the struggles, the 3-6 record, I think a lot of people feel like Florida's a lot better probably than their 3-6 record. And this was going to be a good test as South Carolina closed down SEC play in Will Muschamp's second season, another sort of measuring stick game. This team is already on the ropes. They do have talent, but is South Carolina going to be able to come in, take care of business, and just finish this team off? And they looked like they were well on their way to doing that until they let the Gators in a little bit later in the football game, in the late minutes of the football game. And another reason why this was, in my opinion, I think a good test for South Carolina is because of the Will Muschamp factor. Will Muschamp didn't get the better of his former team last year down in the swamp. Now it's their time to come into Will Muschamp's new backyard. And he wouldn't admit this leading up to the football game, but I'm sure the powers that be, the administration that's still there in Gainesville, by the way, the administration down there in Gainesville that is still paying Will Muschamp. That's right. Will Muschamp still gets buyout checks from the University of Florida 2.5 years later. But he wants to win this football game. He wants to show those people down in Gainesville that they made a mistake and that he's a lot better of a coach than what the nation seems to think and all the Florida fans seem to think he is. So this was a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity for the Gamecocks to go ahead and make sure they're successful in league play. This is a big sort of a statement game. How are they going to bounce back against the Bulldogs after getting worn down in a physical football game? How are they going to be able to bounce back? And the Gamecocks were able to get on the board early. They were able to stretch a lead 21-13 at halftime. But, you let them hang around. You can't quite put them away. You score 7 points in all of the second half offensively, and you just allow them to creep back in that football game. 7 points in the fourth quarter with an opportunity to get a little bit more. All of a sudden, it's an 8-point game. And then you've got to bring the W home on the shoulders of the defense. So that was a little bit disappointing for me. I thought South Carolina had their opportunities despite the 3 interceptions and the fumble. I thought South Carolina had their opportunities to still put this game away, and they did get the W, of course. There's no shortchanging that. It just wasn't as pretty, I guess, as I would have liked, and that doesn't really count for anything in the record book after the fact. But when you're watching the football game and you're projecting out South Carolina for the remainder of the season against a Wofford, against a Clemson, and whoever their bowl opponent is going to be, I think Gamecock Nation, when you look at how Clemson's playing and you look at how South Carolina's playing, I think the Gamecock fans are starting to get a little bit more optimistic about that game at the end of November, especially now that it's a 7:30 kick. That was announced early in the week. South Carolina versus Clemson's a 7:30 kick on ESPN. Night game, just what every Gamecock fan wanted. Feeling a little bit better going towards the end of the season. Wofford is going to be a tough game, but you expect to win that football game. And now everyone's starting to circle the calendar and start to make their plans for November 25th when Clemson comes to town. They haven't been playing all that well. South Carolina didn't play well against Florida for the most part. They had a lot of silly mistakes. Even though they had a very balanced offensive attack, you hold Florida to only 301 yards. A lot of those yards come on 2 big breakdown plays, the late pass down into the red zone, and the long run that South Carolina gives up in the second half as well. But you basically shut them down, especially on third down. It's just, you see it with Tennessee, you saw it with Georgia, you saw it with Florida. Defensively speaking, South Carolina just can't put an entire ball game together without giving up some big-time explosive plays. And that by itself isn't a big deal to me. And I don't think it should be a big deal to anybody else. But when South Carolina offensively, in my opinion, is going to have a hard time finding success for a quarter and a half of every single football game, you allow these teams to creep back into the football game. And it didn't happen this time. It almost happened against Tennessee. It almost happened against Vanderbilt. So South Carolina has been winning ugly here late in the season. If you look up and down their wins, I've also heard a lot of Gamecock fans talking about, well, we're 7-3, NC State's 7-3, and NC State's in the top 25, and South Carolina isn't in the top 25. What has NC State done? They sit at number 22 and 25, respectively. 22 in the coaches poll, 25 in the AP top 25. Look, here's my answer to that. If you're a Gamecock fan, the bottom of the top 25 is littered with 7-3 teams. Just outside of the top 25 is littered with 7-3 football programs, just like South Carolina. I think they're sitting right around 30 in both polls. The question is, what win are you hanging your hat on right now? Of course, if you're a Gamecock fan, you're going to say, well, we beat NC State head-to-head to start the season, and that is true, 35-28. You beat them by a touchdown. But when you talk about a Florida squad that is falling apart and you win by 8, you talk about a Tennessee squad that was falling apart in the middle of October and you beat them 15-9. You lose to Texas A&M. They're not in the polls. You need a last-second field goal at the end of regulation to beat Louisiana Tech 17-16. The resume isn't quite as shiny, I think, as some of these other 7-3 programs. So that would be my response to members of Gamecock Nation who are questioning whether or not South Carolina should be in the top 25. They get the win. By the way, I don't want to get off track here, but I did predict a 28-21 score for South Carolina to beat Florida last week on the program. 28-20 is what it really wound up being. So forgive me if I take just a couple of seconds to give myself a little bit of recognition for the accuracy of that score prediction. You're welcome. Hopefully you took that and you went to Vegas and you made a lot of money. And you're going to share it with me soon because you appreciate what I did for you. Other than that, it was a good ball game. South Carolina very balanced, overcame some Jake Bentley mistakes. How's this for a stat? I'll lay this on you, and you guys can use this at the water cooler, and you guys can take all the credit for it too. I picked this up online. Jake Bentley, in 17 career games as the starting quarterback for the Gamecocks, 13 interceptions total. 5 of those interceptions have come in the last 2 football games against the Gators and the Bulldogs. Got to clean that up if you want to be successful, especially when the big boys come to town like the Clemson Tigers. By the way, as South Carolina continues to move up the bowl projections, they're looking at some pretty nice bowl opportunities. It looks like if everything plays out the way Gamecock fans hope to, South Carolina is probably going to be taking a trip down to Florida. I've seen the Outback Bowl. I've seen the Tax Slayer Bowl, I believe, which is the former Gator Bowl. So there are opportunities for South Carolina to go bowling down in Florida again, which is right where South Carolina is used to being. When you were getting those 12-win seasons, that's where South Carolina was. They were in Jacksonville. They were in Orlando. They were in Tampa. They were beating programs like Michigan. They were beating programs like Wisconsin. They were beating programs like Nebraska. These high-quality, tradition-rich programs that helped bring the South Carolina name to national recognition. We'll catch you up on the bowl projections a little bit later on the program. We're going to head out to our first break. Stay with us, though. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine. All right, what's up? We're back here on the Carolina CrowLine. Tyler at CRM Sports is the email address if you want to be a part of the program with your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, or critiques. Tyler at crmsports.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at Carolina CrowLine. You can also follow us on Facebook as well. You see our Facebook Lives of our weekly broadcast right there on our Facebook profile. You can continue to comment, ask questions in our webcasts. We can continue the conversation throughout the week, even if you can't catch us live. If you don't get us in your local radio market, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Carolina CrowLine. You can stream the Carolina CrowLine from the internet without any downloading necessary. So if you're already low on memory, just go ahead to your web browser, type in carolina.libsyn.com. That is LIBSYN.com, short for Liberated Syndication, libsyn.com. You will see all of the Carolina CrowLine podcasts. You can listen to any of the ones you want, including the most recent one, which usually get updated around Wednesday. You can also If that's not enough options for you, if you're someone who likes to have options, you can go ahead and download the Gamecock Sports Radio app on your Android or iPhone, and you will see the Carolina CrowLine magically appear there as a podcast as well, along with a handful of other college football and Gamecock-related podcasts throughout the week. So I really like that app because there's a lot of fresh new content that shows up on that throughout the week. If you're a recruitnik and you like to follow that, you got some recruiting buzz that shows up on there. You've got some score predictions. You've got some guys on there that talk a little bit more than just Gamecock football, a little bit of Southern football there as well. So it's all kind of stuff, little bit of stuff for everybody. Just to hit you up with some stats on the ball game, you can use these around the water cooler as well. By the way, we already mentioned South Carolina, 469 total yards of offense to Florida's 301. A lot of that offense for Florida came in a few chunk plays right there in the second half. One stat I thought really kind of told the tale of the football game was third down efficiency. Gators, when South Carolina got them in third down, only 2 of 15 on third down. South Carolina was 5 of 13. You might say, well, that's only 3 more, which is true based on the world of numbers, but success rate there for South Carolina much better than it has been. 249 yards passing for South Carolina versus 223 for the Gators, and this is really the other stat I think that really tells the tale. 220 yards rushing for the Gamecocks. Compare that to only 78 yards on the ground for the Florida Gators. That really was the story of the game to me, because if you're going to turn the ball over 4 times like South Carolina did at home against a wounded team like the Florida Gators, you're asking for a loss. That's a recipe for disaster, but South Carolina was able to overcome those with some big plays right when they really needed it. Mon Denson, great performance by him. A.J. Turner continues to be the lead back. I think a lot of people at this point in the season, if you were asked back in August about whether or not you believed A.J. Turner and Mon Denson were going to be the 2 running backs that would lead the South Carolina offense, a lot of people would have just laughed and walked off. A lot of hype from Tyson Williams coming into the season, and he's done good things. There's no question about that. Of course, we all know about Rico Dowdle out with the injury. But A.J. Turner, 22 carries for 136 yards against one of the better defensive football teams in the SEC. Mon Denson, 2 big scores, 13 carries for 61 yards. Another thing, Jake Bentley, 8 carries, 14 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was the kind of stuff I was hoping to see against the Georgia Bulldogs. You saw that against Vanderbilt, but they did not run Jake Bentley against the Bulldogs. I don't know if they were just concerned with like an injury situation or maybe just the way the Bulldogs schemed it up that they decided not to call that type of offense during the game in Athens. But whatever the reason was, they didn't run the quarterback after they experienced a lot of success with that against the Commodores. You don't do it at all against the Bulldogs, and then you get back home and Jake Bentley winds up with 2 rushing touchdowns and had a couple other really good runs. Now, again, you listen to the show, you know how I feel about the sack numbers. I don't think sack yardage, negative yardage should go against a quarterback's rushing total, but that's not going to change. So we're not going to worry about that. Jake Bentley spreading the ball around a lot. He hit 7-8 different receivers in the football game, led by Ortre Smith, 5 catches, 60 yards. Hayden Hurst, 5 catches, 59 yards, along with that crazy pass that Bentley heaved as he was being dragged down right there on the goal line. He just chucks it up, and Hayden Hurst is able to bring it in with one hand. The announcers didn't even know he had caught the ball at the time. They thought it was incomplete. They didn't even know where it was. I don't think the defenders really knew where it was, but Hayden Hurst just held his hand out, dropped it in, and ran out of bounds. By the way, Hayden Hurst planning to walk with the seniors on senior day, so it looks like even though he's a junior, this is going to be his final year as a Gamecock, going to be entering into the NFL draft. Apparently, that hasn't been officially confirmed, but it has been confirmed that he's going to be walking with the seniors. Usually when that happens, that's pretty much a telltale sign that he's not going to be returning. I think it's a perfect decision for Hayden Hurst due to his age, the fact that he pursued a professional baseball career prior to being a walk-on here at South Carolina. He's not 21 like everybody else on the team. A little bit older. I don't think he's going to prove anything more in terms of his ability, skills, or what he's capable of by coming back and playing for South Carolina another year. So I think he's making the right move. Like Clowney, that was the right move. Kelsey Quarles, not so much. Ace Sanders, not so much. Hayden Hurst, I think this is the right move for him. Projected to be, I think the last time I checked, he was projected to be one of the top 2 or 3 tight ends in all of the NFL draft. There's no reason for him to stick around. A.J. Turner, 3 catches, 36 yards. Brian Edwards, 3 catches, 48. He hit Shi Smith for a catch before Shi went out with an injury. He hit Jacob August with a catch. Chavis Dawkins got a big first down there. I believe it was in the third quarter. So he's spreading it around. And we mentioned this last week on the program. More people need to step up for South Carolina. Here's a crazy stat. I also saw this on the internet earlier in the week. Deebo Samuel only played in 5 quarters for South Carolina this season. 5 quarters for South Carolina this season. He just now got overtaken for most touchdowns on the season with 3 games left to go. That's the kind of impact Deebo Samuel brought to this football team. That's the reason why there needs to be so many other guys stepping up and show they can be weapons, because he's not walking through that door. We figured that out last week. It's going to be very important for this offense to stay dangerous and to stay multiple so opponents cannot key in on just the same 2 or 3 guys over and over again. It's been working in the running game. You've got Bentley, Denson, Turner. Right now, I would like to see Smith, Hurst, and Edwards, those 4 guys, and have someone else step up as well, just to give extra things for defensive staffs to think about. So I thought that was a big-time plus by the offense this past Saturday against the Gators. We'll head out to our next break. When we come back, a little bit of Will Muschamp postgame after the win over Florida.
Loans are made by WebBank. Rates and terms vary based on credit history. Amazon is not a sponsor of this promotion. Other restrictions apply. See website for details.
I was making great progress on building my savings, but then I get hit with an unexpected car repair bill.
Keeping a close eye on my credit score allowed me to buy my first house, but an unexpected medical emergency set me back.
When the unexpected happened, Avant was there to help. If you need to borrow $2,000 to $35,000, try Avant. It's fast, simple, and transparent.
Everything is done online. There are no prepayment fees, and no collateral is required. And you can instantly check your rate with no impact to your credit score.
Over 500,000 customers have experienced the convenience of a loan through Avant. No wonder Avant has an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. And now, Avant will give you a $50 Amazon.com gift card after your first payment is made on time. To check your rates and to get this special radio offer, go to Avant.com today and enter promo code 5252 when applying. That's AVANT.com, promo code 5252. Go to Avant.com today and enter promo code 5252.
Men, if you're like me, you appreciate the feeling of a clean, smooth shave from a quality blade. The sort of shave that cuts clean without the burn. So why are you messing around with generic razors that cost $32 for an 8-pack when you can shave with Harry's high-quality German-engineered blades for half the price? And because Harry's is so confident in the quality of their blades, they'll send you their most popular set, complete with a razor, one of their world-famous blades, shaving cream, and post-shave balm for free if you cover shipping. A total value of $20 at no cost to you, with code 0404 at checkout. Their way of saying thank you for trying them. How is Harry's able to save you all this money and still give you the best shave you'll ever enjoy? By owning the factory that manufactures the blades. That's how. Go to harrys.com now and enter code 0404 at checkout to claim your free trial set and post-shave balm. That's harrys.com, code 0404.
And we're back here on the program. Thank you for joining us here on the Carolina CrowLine, coming to you from the CRM Sports Studios in Columbia, South Carolina. We're talking the Gamecocks and the Gators, 28-20 over Florida, falling to 3-6, 3-5 in conference, minus a coach. Rumors abuzz here during the week that Chip Kelly could possibly be announced sometime this week as the new Gators head coach. I'm not quite sure how I feel about the possibility of that, just assuming that it's going to be true. I don't have any inside source or knowledge. Chip Kelly, though, we know his history at Oregon. We know what he was able to do, bringing that program to national relevance, having a national championship appearance during the BCS days, I believe. And then a not-so-good foray into the NFL. That sounds familiar. I feel like there's a coach that coached the Gamecocks all not that long ago that didn't have a successful run in the NFL, but who was that? I can't remember, but it could work. I think if they give Chip Kelly some time, I think it could definitely work for him to get the kind of athlete that he needs in to run his offense. This is not a guy that takes your prototypical football players. Yes, there are the certain can't-miss blue-chip recruits that every coach wants, but he runs a particular scheme. He's looking for a particular thing in what his football players can do. I'm interested to see how this plays out. You've got Tennessee looking for a coach now. You've got Florida looking for a coach now. It seems like Kevin Sumlin at the moment is safe, but after the loss to Auburn, 42-27, they still have to play Ole Miss. They still have to play LSU. I think it's possible Kevin Sumlin could be a goner. Brett Bielema for Arkansas, he still has to play Mississippi State and Missouri. By the way, Missouri's looking a lot better right now than they were when the Gamecocks got a hold of them early in the season. Barry Odom looks like he's safe. So it looks like the SEC could be looking for up to, in my opinion, 4 new coaches at the end of this season. That would be very interesting turn of events, if you ask me. Let's kick it back out to Coach Muschamp, let you hear his thoughts towards the end of the football game and his reaction to some of the defensive breakdowns and what it's going to be like going forward here for the Gamecocks.
Well, we made it a little more interesting than it probably needed to be. So Coach Tanner's been complaining about concessions. So I figured we'd keep some people around in the game. But really proud of our football team. That the last 2 weeks, Vanderbilt game and Georgia game, 2 very physical games. We had a bunch of guys that took very sparingly reps throughout the week, and go out there. And DJ Smith wasn't able to go in pregame, and Dante Sawyer was limping on one leg. And but we're like everybody else in the country right now. We're really beat up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I thought we moved the ball extremely well. We stayed balanced, exactly what we want to do. Ran the ball extremely well. Jake will have a couple throws. We had a miscommunication coming off the goal line on the ball there, and then got to take a sack or throw the ball away on the one wheel right on our sideline. You can't throw a pick in that situation, and then the ball in the end zone. I don't think he saw the safety. You can ask him, but the guy made a heck of a play. Chauncey came out of the top and intercepted the ball, but much better on third down defensively. I thought we stopped the run other than 2 runs on the power play off the nub side on the backside. I thought we played the runs pretty well for the most part, but our guys continued to fight and play hard in the game and made the plays when we needed to make the plays. A huge interception there at the end. And give Florida credit. Those kids have been through an awful lot. It's a very difficult thing to go through and what those young men are facing, and I hate it for those guys. But they got a bunch of good kids in that locker room. It's a tough situation that they're going through right now. I told our football team all week that this team's going to come out and fight and play hard. I know those guys. And so they represented Florida extremely well today. And I'll open it up for any questions.
Will, how are Shy Smith and Tyson Williams?
Shy, it was not a hit. Guy, I think, was poked in the eye and had blurry vision in the eye. There was not a hit. There was no contact, and he had a hard time getting focused, so they couldn't get him back in. And Tyson's fine. AJ was running extremely well. Mon was playing extremely well. And certainly I just talked to Tyson in the locker room. He's good, and certainly we're going to need him moving forward.
With DJ, was it the hip again?
Yeah, he's got a hip, and took a pretty good shot in the Georgia game, and he's just limited. He got out there in pregame. He tried, moved around a little bit, and moved around throughout the week. Practiced a little bit Thursday, but again, we just didn't feel like he was full speed enough to play. Stephen Montek did a nice job. Javon Charleston did a nice job.
Will, is it safe to say this is the most balanced this team has been all year on offense?
I would against a good defense. I mean, at the end of the day, I know they've had their share of injuries, but those, C.C. Jefferson and Taven Bryan and Zaninga, those guys, they got good football players. And but I was extremely pleased with how we were able to run the football, move the football, and something we've done all year is take care of the ball. We just got to take care of it a little bit better, make some better decisions. But we certainly will work on that moving forward.
What was the difference defensively on third down for you guys today?
Well, I think that, they went to a lot of 7-man protections, but, I thought T-Rob and the defensive staff did a really good job of creating some one-on-ones. We won in some one-on-ones. We flushed Malik early in the game. We had him on the perimeter a lot, and then, Felipe, I felt like we got good pressure on him. He's got a tremendous arm talent. You saw there at the end, and, that's just a poor decision by our players. I mean, we're in man coverage. We got him flushed. We got exactly what we wanted. It was a 3rd and 5 situation. He wanted to run the jerk route to the boundary, and they kept running their routes downfield. And our guys came out of coverage. When the quarterback hadn't crossed the line, you can't come out of coverage, and our guys know better than that. We'll do a better job of coaching. That's on me. But that situation should not have happened.
Coach, talk about how you thought the team competed today in the trenches.
Well, I thought we competed extremely well. You take away 2 runs that they had, one on our sideline and one for the touchdown right before halftime. That's really in the run game, and the one quarterback counter on their sideline for about 30 yards. I don't know exactly what the rush was. That was for 23 yards. But you take those 3 runs, the running game was non-existent. And then for us to be able to stay balanced and run the ball to help us in the throwing game is huge.
Well, a lot of SEC teams have had, well-documented adversity this year. You guys have had injuries and so forth, too. What's been the key to you guys managing your own adversity this year and keep plugging along?
I think it's the culture within our program from a standpoint of something that we preach about every day, man down, man up, so what, now what mentality. Whether you've done something very good and successful, and it doesn't matter. It matters about the next snap. It matters about the next day, the next hour, the next minute. And or you face great adversity. You move to the next thing, and we have a so what now what mentality, and that's part of who we are and what we are moving forward. And don't let external circumstances things you have no control over, including injuries, affect who you are and how you play. That's true in life. And to me, you talk about progress. This football team was 3-9 2 years ago. 3-9. And I just complimented them in the locker room. You talk about investing in what you need to do to be successful, to buying into a new coaching staff, to buy into a different way of maybe doing things. And I'm really proud of this football team and how that they've invested in us and invested in themselves and in each other. Because there's a lot of progress being made. Now, we're not happy with where we are, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. We have a lot more out there for us moving forward, but I'm very proud of the progress we've been able to make.
Taylor had 5.
All right, so there's a little bit from Coach Will Muschamp right there, and I particularly like the second half of that clip that we just played, talking about the culture within the program, talking about where South Carolina was. South Carolina was losing to the Citadel. They didn't really have a chance to do anything, okay? You take a look at the Citadel right now in the Southern Conference. They're a 500 football team. Now, they were good then, but you're losing to a Division II, I'm going to call them Division II, Southern Conference football team. If you're in the SEC, if you're in any Power 5 conference, you have no business losing to the Citadel, right? The only difference between South Carolina losing to the Citadel and Michigan losing to Appalachian State was Michigan was a lot more highly ranked when it happened, but it's the same kind of thing. You can't just allow something like that to happen, and the reason why it gets allowed to happen is when the culture in the program is bad, when the coaching staff isn't getting out in front of problems and solving them prior to game day. You're never ever going to be able, not in today's game, you're not going to be able to just show up and beat a team all the time. You're not. You're going to have to stay mentally focused. You're going to have to stay locked in. You're going to have to prepare the right way. And that's not just coach speak. I think that's like legit mental toughness. That's what that is. And South Carolina has that these days. You can tell that within the program. You can tell that with the pride they take. You can tell that by the relationship they have with the coaches. You can tell that by the improvement that the defense has made and the offense overall. Look, name me somebody on this team that is making a giant impact who wasn't on this team last year. Shi Smith or Trey Smith. I mean, those could probably be basically the only two people that I can think of. Beyond that, everybody else who's making a tremendous impact on both sides of the football for this football team were on the team last year. And a lot of the people were on the 3-9 team too when they stunk. And even though they were better last year, they were still pretty bad. And now here South Carolina is 7-3, 5-3 in the SEC. I mentioned this at the top of the program. This is only the 8th time in 26 tries that South Carolina has actually had a winning conference record in the SEC since they joined the conference. 8th time. So I think that the proof is very noticeable. I think the improvement is tangible. And I mentioned this when Will Muschamp got hired last season, prior to last season. It's year 3 in the program. If you look at a lot of the historic runs, and I'm not predicting national championship or anything like that, so don't get me wrong, but it's year 3 in the program. Look at Urban Meyer at Florida, Urban Meyer at Ohio State. That's just one example. You can go down the list. I'll Google it. But those aren't the only examples. Tendencies show year 3 with a coaching change, getting the program turned around, that's when it all starts to come together. And I think South Carolina is definitely trending in that direction. When Will Muschamp was first hired here, I don't think anybody was going to say, oh, looks like year 3 is going to be the year for Coach Muschamp and the boys. But now it's starting to look like that a little bit more. We got Salah in the chat room. He wants to chime in, talking about the defense has definitely been improving, and the D-line has become a lot more active than they have been in the past few seasons. He's exactly right. South Carolina with 7 tackles for loss on the football game against the Gators, 4 sacks in the football game. By the way, South Carolina is among the leaders in all of college football for turnover margin, and they're also tied for the top of the SEC in turnover margin in league play as well. So these are just a couple of the tangible things that you can continue to lean on and notice about the improvements. Offensively, there's no question. There's been some bumps in the road this year, but there have been a lot of improvement as well, especially now that South Carolina looks like they're finally starting to get the hang of this running game situation. The Georgia game aside, it looks like they're starting to make some steady improvements. We're going to head out to our next break. Please stay with us. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine. All right, we're back here on the Carolina CrowLine. We're asking Gamecock Nation, how you feeling about the Clemson game? You feeling a little bit better about the matchup now that you know the kickoff time, now that Clemson hasn't exactly been the offensive and defensive juggernaut that maybe a lot of people in college football expected, and South Carolina seems to have it rolling a little bit better on both sides of the football. I'm not, again, don't mistake my words, I'm not expecting South Carolina to come out and win that football game, not at this point, but Gamecock Nation, are we feeling a little bit more optimistic about that Clemson football game? I've heard, I haven't looked for myself, but I've heard some people say early 2-week lines for the football game, I think right now is 13.5 points for Clemson, and that sounds about right, I think, for the matchup, the Palmetto rivalry, as the powers that be want everyone to call it. So tweet to us at Carolina CrowLine. Let us know how you feel about the Clemson game. Still some issues. I think Clemson, obviously a very dangerous football team, but are we feeling a little bit better? There we go. That's more sensical English. Email the show, Tyler at crmsports.com. Of course, you can hit us up on our Facebook page. Jump into the chat room on our Facebook Live webcast of the show. Salah coming in. Clemson offense, multi-dimensional, which is worrisome, but our defense played pretty well against Texas A&M. That's true, Salah. They did play a little bit better against Texas A&M until they decided to run the quarterback, and then our defense entirely fell apart. And that's my concern. Number one, if you want to touch on it, Kelly Bryant running the football. He is not Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was that quarterback that was going to stand back there and was going to throw the football. He could extend plays like a Connor Shaw. They would occasionally call plays for Deshaun Watson, and he had that ability, a lot like Connor Shaw, to avoid the big hit, to extend plays, and continue to move the chains. Kelly Bryant is not that kind of person. Kelly Bryant is much more, in my opinion, closer to a Cam Newton. Now, not the same as a Cam Newton, but closer to a Cam Newton. He is definitely a run-first type of quarterback. He can throw the football. They are very dangerous at the wide receiver position. But at this point, I think what they are is if they get into a game where he's got to stand back there and deliver the football down the field consistently and for a consecutive number of times, I think Clemson is going to get themselves into a little bit of trouble. You've got to watch out for their run game. That is going to be the issue. Tavian Feaster, ATN, Adam Choice, Kelly Bryant, all of those cats can run the football. That's my number one concern for that game. But that's 2 weeks away. We don't have to worry about it right now. But are we feeling a little bit better? That's the take that I want from Gamecock Nation. Now, South Carolina turns their attention to the Wofford Terriers. By the way, I think if you know anything about Gamecock football, you know that it's not really a good time when South Carolina plays Wofford. Now, overall, South Carolina is 19-4 against the Wofford Terriers. Wofford currently sitting 9-1 in their league, 9-1 overall, 7-1 in their league. And think back to the Spurrier days. This option attack, this wing tee type stuff, a la those of you that aren't too familiar with Wofford, think Georgia Tech. They're going to throw the ball maybe 3 or 4 times the entire football game, but most of it is going to be running from side to side, the halfback dive, the quarterback pitch, swing passes, runs off tackle, things of that nature, deception, getting defenders to look in the wrong place, and then having the football just run right by you. And cut blocking, that's the other thing. You've heard some players talk about it this week, how they've been trying to practice for the cut blocking, which, again, if you're a layman, cut blocking is when the offensive linemen and the tight ends and the tailbacks just kind of dive at the legs of the defender to try and cut them right out of the play, cut them down. And that's really how they block. So that's what you have to pay attention for. They're not going to out-athlete South Carolina, but what they're going to do is they're going to out-discipline South Carolina. That's their plan for success. And you heard Will Muschamp talk about it. You heard some of the players talk about it. This is supposed to be basically like Wofford's. They even use the word Super Bowl. So they're going to come in, they're going to pull out all the stops, and they're going to try and beat South Carolina. This game doesn't really go against them in terms of, since they're a Division II team, a loss to South Carolina isn't really going to affect them in their league play. So a loss here, they're okay with that. But a win, that means something completely different for the Wofford Terriers. So this is going to be no joke coming into Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday at 4 p.m. We're going to head out to our last break of the program. When we come back, we're going to update you on the SEC in the top 25, and then I'll give you my score prediction for South Carolina and Wofford. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine on the CRM Sports Network. Stay with us.
Geico presents Unhelpful Home Improvement How-Tos.
Overhanging trees present a real danger. During high winds, falling branches can damage roofs and windows. So today, I'll show you how to protect your home by wrapping it in bubble packaging. All you need is a staple gun and 142,000 feet of bubble packaging. Let's get started.
You could try to protect your home with bubble packaging, or you could get covered for personal property damage through the Geico Insurance Agency. Call Geico and see how affordable homeowners insurance can be.
Check out the Groupon app where you can save up to infinity, theoretically speaking. Actually, you can save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Suppose you save $10 on tacos and took that $10 and used it to get more great restaurant deals on Groupon, like Italian or Chinese. Pretty soon, you could save a ton. Brunch? Check Groupon. Dinner plans? Check Groupon. Hungry? Use the top-rated Groupon app to save up to $100 a week on what you do every day. Download the app and save. Groupon.
What makes a holiday card unforgettable? Personality. And no one makes it easier or more affordable to create a holiday card full of personality than Vistaprint. Right now, get 50% off all custom holiday cards. That means 30 cards start at less than $15. With hundreds of stunning designs, your personality will shine through with every card you send. Just go to Vistaprint.com today and enter the promo code HOLIDAY to get 50% off all custom holiday cards. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code HOLIDAY.
Blue Star medicated ointment gets 5-star reviews from our loyal users for fast relief of the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
Blue Star soothes insect bites and fungal infections.
It really works on the summer rashes I get every year.
I had psoriasis on my elbows. Blue Star worked wonders.
Amazing stuff. Smear a bit on and the itch is gone.
Look for the white box with the blue star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
All right, we're back here for the final segment. I should probably stop combining words together and saying them at once. Final segment of the program here on the Carolina CrowLine. We call it the nice. The 2-minute drill here in the CRM Sports Studios. I'll get it right eventually. Just to update you on the top 25, I mentioned it a little bit earlier in the program in terms of the SEC. Alabama currently at the top, number 1. Miami up all the way to number 2. Oklahoma in at number 3. Clemson at number 4. Wisconsin 5. Auburn up to number 6 after their big win over the Bulldogs. Georgia slips from 2 all the way down to number 7. Ohio State gets a nice little bump after losing their last game, up to number 8. Notre Dame, after getting whooped by Miami, down to number 9. Oklahoma State at number 10. Just to continue on down, you got UCF at 14, Mississippi State at 17, LSU at 21, West Virginia at 24, NC State holding steady in the AP Top 25 at number 25. It looks like to me you've got Georgia losing, you've got Notre Dame losing, you've got TCU losing. All of these squads seem to be just kind of making room for Clemson, even though they've suffered that. In my opinion, Georgia's loss to Auburn, even though it wasn't even that close, I don't think should hurt Georgia as badly as Clemson's loss to Syracuse. You're talking about a team that's not even close to sniffing the top 25. It happened when their quarterback got knocked out of the game, but they weren't playing so hot when he was even in the game. And Notre Dame right there that was sitting tight up there in the top 5, they've just gotten out of the way. Ohio State's gotten out of the way. Auburn is trying to make a push. Wisconsin is just at 10-0, is just kind of like the last team there, sitting there at number 5 in the AP Top 25. They're going to get their shot to play a good team in the Big Ten Championship. But when you look at their schedule, there's not so much that they can really have hang their hat on there either. So I don't want to make this about Clemson, but it just seems to me the impression that I got is just the way things are starting to unfold. You still got Alabama doing what they do. Clemson lost early in the season, and now it seems like they're kind of being rewarded for losing earlier in the season. Please don't at me, Clemson fans, if you just want to start talking trash. It's just the way I see it. It's just how it's going to work. Miami's up there. They're going to get a chance to test their mettle against the Clemson Tigers. Both teams have clinched their divisions in the ACC championship game. So Clemson gets that win over number 2 Miami. That, in my opinion, that pretty much undoes anything that the Syracuse loss did to them. Miami wins. Clemson's out. I mean, that's Clemson's second loss there, and I just don't see a way for them in the playoff in the top 4. And Miami's basically just sealed their appearance in the college football playoff. But let's turn our attention to the SEC. South Carolina has wrapped SEC play. There are still SEC games going on this weekend. You've got Florida licking their wounds against UAB. Georgia is hosting Kentucky. Again, if Kentucky wins that game, technically South Carolina will finish third in the SEC because they'll have the same conference record. Kentucky will get the tiebreaker with the win over South Carolina, if you remember back to the blackout. So technically South Carolina would finish third if Kentucky was able to beat the Georgia Bulldogs between the hedges. I just don't see that happening, so we'll call South Carolina the second place finisher in the SEC East. Missouri goes on the road to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. Tennessee welcomes LSU to Neyland Stadium. Alabama has a tough test against Mercer. Arkansas welcomes Mississippi State Bulldogs. Auburn takes on Louisiana Monroe. And then Texas A&M and Ole Miss get it on to finish SEC play. By the way, just in case you're trying to get your DVR all set up, Kentucky, Georgia is going to be the CBS National Game of the Week at noon. And then you've got Mississippi State taking on Arkansas as the CBS 3:30 game. So, a little thin in terms of quality SEC games. I like that Mississippi State-Arkansas matchup. But it just, I don't know. Would I rather see Tennessee-LSU? I don't know. It's just kind of whatever. The good week is going to be the last week of the season. So we're just kind of limping to the finish here in conference play. Let's turn our attention real quick to close the show with the Wofford Terriers. Just looking back, I mentioned on the front side of the break that Wofford, South Carolina is 19-4 against Wofford all time. But if you just look back, let me get my crack research here and move it to where I can read it. If you look back at the last couple of meetings, this has not been an easy football game for South Carolina. In 2012, South Carolina wins 24-7 here in Williams-Brice Stadium. All these games have been in Williams-Brice Stadium. In 2008, a 23-13 win, a 10-point win. In 2006, a 27-20 win. And then you go all the way back to 2001 with a 38-14 win. That was a nice, comfortable victory. But those three previous games that I just mentioned, 27-20, 23-13, 24-7, this is kind of part and parcel of what the Wofford Terriers bring to Williams-Brice Stadium. They're one of those unique, quirky offenses. You're not going to face it anywhere else. It's going to present some challenges. The players and the coaches can talk about how much they've prepared for this kind of football game, but it's one of those things where you don't have a scout team for this. You don't really know how things are going to go or how the players are going to react. You can scheme it in the film room all you want, but when you're actually up against it and you see all these little guys trot out onto the field and then all of a sudden they start breaking 15, 10, 20-yard runs and you're starting to get a little frustrated because you're tired of being blocked down at the knees and the ankles, things can change a little bit. And these guys play extremely technically, fundamentally sound football. These guys aren't going to make mistakes, okay? That's the way they've been coached. That's their mentality, and they're ready for this game, all right? It doesn't matter what Will Muschamp says. It doesn't matter what the players say. It's easy to not bring your best when you're playing an opponent like this. You see it weekend after weekend in college football. LSU lost to Troy. In the fifth game of the season. You think that was because Troy was a better football team? Unlikely. It's probably because there was a lot of turmoil going on in the program, and the boys in the Bayou just weren't as focused as they probably should have been, and they got burned for it. So that is something to watch out. And I think if you look at the last three football games, I think you can see that in the scores every time the Wofford Terriers come to town. And these guys are good. 9-1, 7-1 in conference. The game isn't even on the board in Vegas. And by the way, the Clemson game's not on the board in Vegas either because they're playing the Citadel, which is in the tank in the bottom of the Southern Conference that Wofford is in first place in. So I see this game being a slow start. It's going to be easy for the defense to fall asleep. They're going to have to watch out for the big plays. But South Carolina is going to win this football game. And if they don't, it's because they didn't deserve to win the football game. I think I've got South Carolina here. 38-17 is the score I'm writing down. Hopefully, if I'm anywhere as good as I was last week, you should take that to Vegas and put your money down right now. But if you lose it, I'm not telling you where I live. That's the program. Thanks for listening. I'm Tyler Garrett, the host of the show. We'll be back next week to talk the Clemson Tigers. It's a big week coming up. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. You're listening to the Carolina CrowLine.